Your sleep is crucially important. Yet millions of us tough it out, ignoring sleep as if we could just power through it. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So let's dig into sleep today on Equal Matters. That is Cal, the guitar hero, nasty on the guitar. Joined us a couple episodes back here on Equal Matters as well. Go back and hear his stories about his nationwide tour. So much fun. I'm Rob Hunter. I first started ignoring my sleep in high school, junior and senior years specifically. Back then, I took all the hardest classes. I ran cross country and track, and I had a part-time job. Based on practice, work, and homework, I probably slept an average of 5 hours a night, and then I would try to catch up on the weekends and sleep till noon. Then I went into radio broadcasting after college, a career which just messes with your sleep. 3 a.m. wake-up calls, overnight shifts where you start work at 10 p.m., you work till 6 a.m., you sleep during the day. All of that lack of sleep adds up. Now, sleep is vitally important to your health and your overall well-being. So when I was a kid, a teenager, I was depressed, diagnosed twice. Depression may have been made worse because of my poor sleep. Sleep is when your body recovers from the day. Sleep is when your body recharges and gets you ready for the next day. Exactly why I wanted to bring Dr. Steve Hruby back to Equal Matters. Dr. Steve knows how important sleep is to your overall health. So today, that's what we're going to talk to him about. What does your body do when you sleep, and what happens to your body when you don't sleep enough? Dr. Steve Hruby, is sleep the most important thing that our body does?
Oh, I like that question. Possibly, depending who you are. Yeah, I like the question. Sleep is a foundational pillar to your health. And what I mean by that is if your sleep is off, it's going to be the most important thing when it comes to your health and well-being. So
I read, I've lived and breathed politics for the last 22 years of my life. I've studied presidents, and I only bring this up because you think of the presidency as this 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job. And I remember reading about President Bill Clinton back in the day and how little he needed sleep. 5 hours, he was good. Same thing with former President Trump. The rumor is he sleeps 4 hours a night.
Right.
I do that, to your point, I think, Dr. Steve. I'm a mess. I can do it for like a day.
Yeah.
But if I do 2 days of 4 hours of sleep, I'm a basket case.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so first of all, there can be some biological differences for people in terms of what they need with sleep. I have a father, presidents are generally very high level people in terms of, what they've achieved to get to that point, take the politics and the opinions about that. But it takes a certain person to get to that level, I would say. High level executives are the same way. And you'll hear that a lot. You'll hear that this person they don't sleep. And there's a couple things I want to touch on. One is there's this myth around not sleeping and success, that kind of grinder mentality. And most of us have heard for years. And I used to feel this way and believe it, that, there's that saying, you'll sleep when you're dead.
Yes.
Right. And that, time is so valuable, especially when you're a high level person trying to get things done in this world. And I think you and me both feel that way of there's just more we want to do all the time. And when you're looking for the time, you start thinking, where's the easiest place that seems like totally useless time is, sleep. I'm wasting 6 hours a night, 8 hours a night sleeping. Just imagine. I think about this. Just
all the
imagine
things I could do.
The advantage I would have, how much more I'd be getting done if I slept less. Well, it turns out that saying you'll sleep more when you're dead is true literally.
And it will bring your death closer.
Yes, if you're not sleeping, you're going to be dead a lot sooner. And and not only that, but the quality of your life is going to go significantly down. And you high-level people, future presidents wannabes listening right now, your ability to make decisions, to be productive, to focus, to make rational decisions, and your emotional well-being will all be negatively affected with that. And the ability or the habit of not sleeping, if you're an adult, 6 to 8 hours, will catch up to you later. And I'll say sleep, similar, think about food. Like there's some people we know, I'm kind of one of these people. I can eat, seemingly I can eat whatever the hell I want and look the way that I look.
Which is very good. I know
yes,
you can't see
thank you. Yes, I'm looking in the mirror right now. I'm looking at a very handsome, slim guy who's in great shape. And yeah, I mean, we're models here. But sleep, lack of sleep is going to age you. It's going to have all these negative effects, and it's really going to work against all the benefits that you think you're getting by being this high level. I have 2 more hours a day to get that much more things done. Very clearly, you may work 2 more extra hours. You'll be so less productive that you will ultimately get less done. And the science on this is very clear for almost everybody. And then there's this like rare, like 1 in 1,000 person who literally can get like 4 to 6 hours and function like most people do at the 6 to 8. I'm just telling you right now, you're not one of those people.
Right.
Like all of it, like it's 1 in 1,000. So you're almost certainly all of us are not that person. And one other thing I want to say that's important to understand about this is sleep. There's amount of time you sleep, and then there's sleep quality. Many high productive people are they're getting very effective sleep in a short period of time. Now, I will say if they're getting 4 hours of sleep, 5 hours of sleep consistently over time, and even that's very high productive sleep, it is going to catch up to them. But some people might get 7 to 8 hours sleep and they're getting low quality sleep. And those people who are getting the high quality, 4 to 5 hours are actually not doing as much damage as the other way around.
I want to get back to the quality here in just a second, because I just want to reintroduce. This is Dr. Steve Hruby. He and I have been friends for a long time. I go see Dr. Steve. He's a chiropractor, KaizenProgressiveHealth.com. If you want to check out more of what Dr. Steve does. So before we get back to the quality, Dr. Steve, as a chiropractor, I think most of us think about what you guys do as doctors is crack our backs. For
Correct.
some of us, we freak out about that. For others like me, we swear by it. How does what you do as a profession, as a chiropractic doctor, tie into sleep?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the way I practice chiropractic is lifestyle is foundational to everything of getting good results with health and well-being. Whether that's somebody's in a reactive state, that they're hurt, they need healing, where they're reacting to something, that their body's telling them there's a problem. That's largely what pain is, or discomfort is, or whatever symptom is your body's way of expressing there's a problem. So lifestyle choices are foundation. The lifestyle choices that everybody has to be aware of and are these foundations. One is sleep. One is nutrition and gut health, the things that you're, getting the things that your body needs. One is nervous system regulation, keeping your nervous system balanced, kind of the fight or flight. Oh, it's a stressful world we live in. Most people are too much in fight or flight. They're not as much as they need to be rested.
And let me pause you right there, Dr. Steve, because the first conversation we had is specifically about the nervous system, how it works, and really how you can be aware of how your own nervous system is sending you signals.
Yes, 100% correct. And I think each one of these will probably go through these foundations because they all tie into each other. And then the other one is movement of your body. That strength, endurance, flexibility, stamina is endurance, dexterity, balance. These all things are foundational to your health and well-being. All these are pillars. One of those pillars are weak. That's where it's going to crack at some point and create problems upstream with that. So
what does your body do, Dr. Steve, when you sleep? So I'll just walk through mine because, again, it's a personal example. My sleep schedule, midnight to about somewhere between 7 and 8 is my normal sleep window.
Yeah.
I feel finally, after so many years of working in radio, getting up early, 2:30, 3:30 in the morning, it's taken me about 3 years to finally feel like I'm sleeping well. So what is my body doing when I'm getting a good quality night's sleep? So let's talk that 6 to 8 hours, which is what you recommend as an adult. What is good quality sleep? And then when I'm getting good quality sleep, what is my body doing?
Yeah. Well, the number one way to know if you're getting good quality sleep is really tune into your body and how you feel after sleep. So that's going to be by far the one thing I tell people: tune into how you feel. And there's a lot of things that happens during sleep, and there's different sleep stages. So let's go through those different sleep stages, because this is when we're talking about quality of sleep, not so much quantity of sleep. And you have sleep stages. So you fall asleep, and your first stage of sleep is just that kind of light drifting off to sleep stage that you're going into. There starts to be kind of a disconnection with your conscious mind, and you're going into the world of the unconscious mind. You're essentially shutting down your conscious mind at that time. Then you go into your stage 2, which is you're now going into this deep sleep. And for most people with healthy deep sleep, that you're going to get that early on in your sleep in the evening. You're going to get the most of that early on in your sleep. So that first 1 to 4 hours, most of that should be, if you're getting ideal sleep, is going to be in this deep sleep stage. Very important things happen in this stage. This is predominantly where body tissue, soft tissue repair and healing is going to occur.
So if you work out or you had an injury.
Yes, This is where that stuff is almost exclusively happening. And if you're not getting this sleep, you're not going to repair and recover, which is an interesting thing that people often don't realize when they are working out hard and going to the gym. That breaks down the muscle and tissue. Almost all the benefit doesn't come there, though. Almost all the benefit occurs during sleep.
Wow.
Because it's during your sleep that you heal and recover in that stage. And if you're not getting that, guess what? All that hard work you just did at the gym or running or training, whatever you're training for, physically, you're going to get a fraction of the benefit. And so if you're going to train hard, you need to also focus on your sleep to get the benefits from that. So very critical stage of sleep. You then move into stage 3, which is, again, these are kind of stage 2 and stage 3 are kind of your deeper sleep stages with that too. There's some finer delineations there. There's certainly physiological different things that are happening. I don't want to get too much into the weeds of that. Then you go into whatever the other type of sleep that, we kind of think deep sleep and then we think REM sleep. So REM sleep is that dream sleep state that you go into. Rapid eye movement is what REM stands for. And a lot of very important brain activity happens in the REM state. Your dream state is now largely understood. One of the benefits, they're still understanding scientifically what these things are all about. But one of the things that's become very clear in the science and the research with REM sleep, your dream state sleep, is this is where we process emotionally what's been going on with us. And it's actually, just think about your REM sleep is your brain's therapy state of sleep. And we know from the science that people who aren't getting REM sleep or not getting enough REM sleep, it affects them on an emotional level in every way. And in every way, that's a negative way. And if you're predisposed to anxiety or some type of mental illness, that's one of the most big triggers of that developing for you is going to be lack of that dream state sleep.
I think of it, Dr. Steve, as, and again, you can visit more about Dr. Steve at KaizenProgressiveHealth.com. And this is a podcast called Equal Matters because the design here is to learn about our personal health. Because I think, Dr. Steve, one of the keys to unlocking our personal freedom is like your 4 pillars of our health. Like our health is so important to whatever it is that you want to do, the quality of life that you want to live, the life that you want to live. That's why we're having these conversations. And this is such great, useful information. Because I think about myself when I was a teenager. And I was diagnosed with depression for the first time at 19. But I now look back and I understand that it started probably around maybe 12, 13, 14. Mm-hmm. And what happened to me was I found internet chat rooms, and I would stay up really late in these internet chat rooms and looking online, and it interrupted my sleep, so I would sometimes get 4 hours of sleep.
Right.
And then in high school, it was all the work that I had to do, all the practice. So does it make sense then that it's harder to fight the negative thoughts in your head when you're, or manage them, I guess is a better way to say it, when you're not sleeping well, because your body is not rested and recovering and its resources are scattered about?
100%. When you sleep, in large part, memories, emotional processing, that's where it's stored properly onto the hard drive being your brain. And if you're not getting the proper sleep, you're not storing that information on the hard drive. I mean, literally, I've done studies with this, like when you study, like the pulling the all-nighter, it doesn't work.
No,
it's the opposite. I mean, and I was like all about the all-nighter in school. And I look at it now and I'm like, holy crap. Like I should have, just been like, I'm just going to sleep. Like you're not taking in any more information. So absolutely. In terms of that processing, you're going to see that with sleep, quality sleep. You're going to see it, especially with lack of quality sleep. On the emotional side, it's just very, very clear. It's probably, to me, whether you're clinically depressed, you've been diagnosed with that. So often, if you just start getting these lifestyle things right, depression is a great one to talk about. I mean, I don't have the exact number, but I'll tell you my opinion. I think 80 to 90% of people who have been diagnosed with depression one way or another, if they just got their lifestyle stuff right, they'd probably get past the point where that would be a quote unquote diagnosis. But regardless of whether they got that or not, it's going to improve whatever it is that they're suffering with, especially when it comes to depression, by getting these foundational pillars stronger. I mean, there's no getting them perfect, but if you're working on those things, now you're empowering yourself. You talked about, freedom and individual. Like we should all have freedom of our body. And autonomy too. That's also a responsibility. And I see a lot of people don't take that. They give away that responsibility. They don't take it. Certainly the pharmaceutical companies out there want to have that responsibility. They want to preach and dictate. And I mean, I would have fun talking about some of the political.
We'll definitely do that in a future episode.
I have my opinions as well too. But you have to take responsibility. And I think that's really important. You can come to somebody like me and learn and get empowered, but it's on you, especially when it comes to the foundational stuff. I mean, a lot of people want the shortcut. Give me the drug, the pill, the biohack, what can I do to just like make this work? And it's number one is own it and take responsibility, educate and empower yourself. So then you can make the right choices or choose not to make the right choices, but at least then the consequences.
Let's talk about some of those choices, because if I'm not sleeping well and someone comes to see you, Dr. Steve, and says, yeah, I'm not sleeping well. I'm sleeping 6 hours a night, but it's not great sleep. What do you advise them to do, right? So, okay, we know that sleep is detrimental. We know that sleep is one of the 4 pillars of health, along with nutrition and gut health, your nervous system, and your movement, of which Dr. Steve and I will continue to talk about these things. So going back to that pillar of sleep, someone comes to you, Dr. Steve, and says that same thing, like, I just can't figure out how to get good sleep. What do you say?
Yeah, there's a lot of different things you can do that will have positive influences. And what I will start doing is teaching them, and I'll talk about some of my recommendations, these kind of low hanging fruit habitual things, or in large part habitual things that we know scientifically will have a positive effect on your sleep. So number one, consistency. Consistency of the time you go to bed and the time you get up. The more consistent you can be, the better that's going to be for your sleep. So for example, let's just take the classic, you want to get 8 hours, 10 to 6 is going to be your consistent time. The closer you can be to always going to bed, whether it's the weekend, during the week, the better that's going to be for your sleep hygiene. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect, but if you're just focusing on, hey, I'm really focused on 10 o'clock is my time that I'm in bed, then be consistent. That's going to be by far over time, one of the biggest things that will help you get better sleep. With consistency, I always tell people to plan for, if 10 o'clock is your I'm in bed and falling into sleep time, that means probably 9:30 you should be brushing your teeth, we all have a little routine. Hopefully most of us have a routine of things.
Especially when it comes to brushing your teeth.
We do,
right?
Yes, before we go to bed. So plan for that appropriately. That's a huge one. Light exposure plays a huge factor in getting good sleep. So first thing with light is that earlier in the morning once the sun's up, that you can get sunlight directly into your eyes, not looking at the sun. Don't look at the sun when I give you
the sun.
But when the sun comes up, if you're looking in the distance, in the direction of where the sun is, so that sunlight is hitting your face and hitting your eyeballs, that sets your circadian rhythm for the day, and it will have a big impact on your ability then that next evening. So it's a weird thing. The first thing you do in the morning has a huge effect on your ability to fall asleep the next night.
And why is that? Because I just noticed recently, the last episode we talked about, I threw my back out. So I immediately get a hold of Dr. Steve, and I immediately go in and see Dr. Steve. But I still wanted to move my body. Again, that's one of the other pillars of health. So I started to walk rather than pushing in the gym.
Right.
So I get up in the morning, about 8 o'clock. I go out and I walk. I don't wear sunglasses. And I have noticed I need less caffeine. Mm-hmm. Because that's like a jolt. It's not a jolt. It just feels good. Is it because, well, explain why. So the sunlight does what?
Yeah, so there's receptors in your eyes. Your eyes, interestingly enough, are actually a part of your brain. And your eye, it's the only part of your brain that's, that's exposed to the outside environment, which is an interesting thing about your eyes. But literally there are receptors in your eyeballs that, again, is with your brain, that circadian rhythm is going to help set that. It's evolutionary biology. That's, our ancestors evolved waking up when the sun came up. We are not nocturnal creatures, so it sets our biology just for hundreds of thousands of years. They always got early light exposure. We survive by getting things done during the day. We survive by resting and relaxing in the evening.
Stay away from the nocturnal predators.
Yes. But we've kind of, again, lost culturally have lost the importance of sleep and how important that is for, our productivity and our function in our life and having a happy, joyful life. So that's one reason. You also, and then that triggers your brain to release a lot of these chemicals in your brain that are going to make you feel good. It is going to make you feel alert and awake. One of the problem is so many people don't do this. They flip on their lights in their house. They might have a bright environment in their house, but you're not getting the full spectrum of the photons that you actually really need. Even just opening up a window, or driving in your car and you're like, hey, the sun's flat, the sun's on me and it's going through my windshield. That weaves out a lot, takes out a lot of the light benefits that you need. On a cloudy day, it's a cloudy day in here in Arizona, which is a rare thing for us, but you're still getting the photons through the clouds that you need for your lights, and you're not going to get those as much through a window, even a window that's not tinted. So it makes a big difference. You'll need a little bit more sunlight or more outdoor exposure with that. If it's a cloudy day. The other thing too is you're also stacking other great things in the morning. You're going for a walk. What are you doing? Movement. We talked about movement.
Yes.
Like movement of the body also turns on a lot of functions and things. And think about our ancestors. When they got up in the morning, they were moving, they were hunting, they were looking for food. It was important that made them alert. So all these things that this triggers in the body, or survival things that our ancestors for hundreds of thousands of years as we evolved and developed, needed with that. You're getting fresh air, and you're outdoors, and these are all good things for our brain function. So you're stacking a bunch of good things in what your little morning routine right there.
And what I found too, Dr. Steve, is that I'm falling asleep most nights a lot easier than I used to.
Yes. Yeah. And that's exactly the benefit you get by doing everything that morning routine. That morning routine will pay dividends later on in the evening. It's also, when you get in that habit, your body knows it's coming, so it knows that's what's going to wake you up. When you get in the habit of needing caffeine, your body knows it's coming, it's expecting it, it's relying on that. And caffeine, it'd be good to talk. Let's go back to caffeine. I just want to close one loop with light, because early light exposure is great for your sleep. Late exposure to light has a negative effect on your sleep.
And what do you mean by late? Like past a certain part of the day?
Once the sun goes down, we shouldn't be we want less light exposure.
Light.
Yes, evolutionary biology. Our ancestors, the way we developed, did not have all this artificial light going on. They didn't have screens they continued to stare at. They didn't have screens, computer screens, your phone, your TV. These are all things that people, as a regular habit, look at in the evening. That is sending a bunch of light signals to your eyes. That's telling your brain, hey, the sun's not down. It's not time to sleep now. Where it's telling your nervous system it's not time to start dropping down into that rest and relax state. A lot of us don't, and let's talk about stacking things, ancestrally wise, that was a time that also people bonded and got together. There's less and less family dinners, bonding time that we're involved to do in the evening. Which is
another future episode.
Yes, we will talk about this too. So you're seeing, but I love this because we will talk about in all these episodes how these things all interact with each other.
Yeah.
And when you're, because people often say to me like, there's too many things. I don't have time for this all. It's actually not so many things. A lot of these things, as you start to do them, start implementing them, they all flow into a routine that's actually very simple and very attainable. But later, again, once the sun's gone down, it's very important that you want to start reducing the amount of light exposure that you have. So another thing that you can benefit if you want to be improving your sleep when it comes to light is even if you just turn off half the lights in your house in the evening, it's going to make a significant difference. Most people that I coach on this, I will teach them, okay, let's pick a time where you're just not looking at your phone anymore. You're not looking at, let's just say that's the 10 o'clock person. Start at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll start at 9 o'clock, then start reducing that time. Once you get into the habit of 9 o'clock, okay, now I'm going to make it 8:30. I'm going to make it 8:45. Slowly start scaling back on that. If you so choose, you've been educated now. If you don't want to do this, don't.
It's personal choice.
But yes, exactly. These are all choices, but these are the things that I can tell you scientifically are going to help. So that closes the loop on light. Let's talk about caffeine.
Yes, please. Do you have a caffeine routine? Do you, because I'm trying to reduce mine because I'm 2 cups of coffee in the morning because I like it. And then I'll have an afternoon something. Maybe it's coffee. Maybe it's an energy drink, whatever it is. All I don't need it, but it tastes good.
Okay, good. I do have a caffeine routine. Unfortunately, I think it would actually be, well, there actually are some health benefits to, actually there's quite a few health benefits to caffeine as too. And so I'll put the negative light on caffeine and sleep first, and then we can talk about the benefits, because there's ways actually if you properly utilize caffeine and time caffeine, you can then weigh the option of, okay, there's a lot of benefit to here, and the way I'm utilizing this, I'm minimizing the negative benefits of caffeine. So I'm going to talk about all that with caffeine right now. So caffeine.
Take notes.
Yes. So caffeine, I think we're all aware, wakes you up. And it does that by binding to certain receptors that actually help inhibit your body's naturally wanting to go to rest and relax.
So I drink a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
The coffee breaks down in my system. The caffeine element attaches. It keeps something open.
Yeah, it attaches to the receptors that, I can't remember the name of the chemical, that if this other chemical attaches to it, is going to make you feel more tired and rest and restored. So with that, early caffeine use is always going to be, in terms of your sleep, is always going to be more beneficial than later caffeine use because they only stay attached to the receptors for a certain period of time.
Sure.
Caffeine happens to have a very long half-life. And what half-life means is the amount of time that stays in your system. Depending on your metabolism, caffeine's half-life is somewhere between 5 and 8 hours for most people with that, which means after, let's just say you're that average of, we'll just say 6 hours that caffeine is going to be in your half-life of caffeine in your system. Means if you drink 2 cups of caffeine at 8 a.m., 6 hours later, it's as if you just drank 1 cup of caffeine.
Got it. So you still have that 1 full cup left to go.
It's like as if you just took a full cup of caffeine at 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Now, 6 hours later, all that caffeine's not good. Now it's as if you have half a cup of caffeine, of coffee, caffeine in your system.
Red Bull, whatever.
Yes. And specifically the caffeine. Red Bull, there's a bunch of other stimulants in it as well, too. Too many for me to even go to, but that's a lot of these energy drinks.
Adding to other receptors.
Yeah, and you got to think about energy drinks are often like stacking a bunch of, stimulants as well as these things that hit receptors. So they're doing a lot of things at once.
This is why he graduated high school at 16. He's got this brain, which is why we want to talk to him.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr.
So it's doing a lot of things at once, and it's negative and maybe positive in terms of you're trying to wake yourself up with those. So caffeine, what I recommend to most people is try to be done with caffeine by 11 a.m. in the morning. For you who love coffee, try to switch to decaf in the afternoon. Still has a little caffeine in it, but decaf has far less. So again, more often than not, don't be perfect. But if you're making these changes, you're moving in a positive direction. That's going to have positive results with that. Some people are more, I know people who can drink a cup of coffee after dinner and they go to sleep. So there's different people are sensitive to it in vastly different ways. Those people though, it is affecting I don't remember specifically, but it does affect your sleep cycles, and which ones I don't remember so much, but probably you just get less REM and less deep sleep. Most of these things especially affect your REM sleep.
So let's go back to that part because I the way I think about sleep, I think about if you're sick, you sleep a lot because your body is taking what normally is your conscious resources. You're processing everything you see, everything you hear, everything you smell. Yeah. You're kind of turning that down so your body can say, okay, the percentage that I need to be awake and conscious, now I'm going to shift gears and I'm going to try to get rid of the virus that's in your body.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
It is accurate. We all know like one of the first things we experience anytime we're fighting any type of virus or sickness or exposure to something is we start to feel tired. Mm-hmm. That's usually, again, if you're tuned into your body, that's usually the biggest early warning signs. And a lot of times, if you can just get sleep, you're not going to go full sick because your body's able to fight it off. One is it's fighting it off at all times. It requires an incredible amount of energy. So again, those resources are being are depleted, so your body needs sleep even more.
Yep.
But most of the healing and regeneration that goes on when you're sick is going to happen during sleep. So we become incredibly needing our rest when we sleep. Mm-hmm. If we get good sleep, we're way less likely to get sick, get exposed. If we get exposed, most of the time we're just going to kick it out of our system. We all get exposed to all these things.
Sure.
Unless you're locking yourself up in a cage, and some people still may be doing that right now. Come out, please.
Yes, please. It's healthy. It's good.
Into
the
sun.
Out here.
Yes, you can start off coming out into the sunlight and do that first. We definitely know that's safe. But it's very important to get rest when it comes to your immune system function.
Okay. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because that is how we have longevity, which is kind of what your specialty is. Dr. Steve is a chiropractor, KaizenProgressiveHealth.com. And the idea of longevity starts with these 4 pillars, including sleep, nervous system, nutrition, movement. So let's talk about kids for a second, because I know there's a lot of parents, and kids need different sleep patterns. You're a parent, so you have kids. I know that if I need 6 to 8 hours of sleep, depending on how young kids are, the younger they are, they need more.
Yeah.
And why is that?
Well, they're growing and they're developing, and that requires a lot of resources, and it requires a lot of resources that you're going to utilize during sleep. Healing and regeneration. I mean, emotionally, their brains developing. Our brains never stop developing. I mean, our brains are still developing too. So what I say applies to adults as well too. But they're in a critical state of development with their brain function at that time. And they just have, for all those reasons, they have much more sleep requirements. So actually, this is one of the numbers I brought in, because there are different stages of life. We need different amounts of sleep. Newborns, 0 to 3 months, 14 to 17 hours. Babies sleep a lot. There's a reason they sleep a lot.
And that reason is so they can grow.
So they can grow, they can develop. Their brain can grow and develop properly, the right parts of their brain. Their brain is developing to start emotionally developing and interacting with this world.
They're like welcomed into the world. Here's the world. You got to figure this out.
So there's we can, as parents, of course, we're visually looking at them and saying, okay, there's visual signs that they're growing and developing. We tend to think of the physical stuff, but we're not looking at their brain. We're hardly ever thinking about, I think about the brain more often than most people. But
it's true.
But I forget that I have one more often than not, right? So, but it's very critical for brain development at that age. Once they get to the infant, so 4 months to 12 months, they need 12 to 15 hours of sleep. A preschooler, 3 to 6 years old, they should be getting 11 to 14 hours of sleep. School-age children, so 6 to 13, 9 to 12 hours of sleep. Teenagers should be getting 8 to 11 hours of sleep. And it is, and this was true for me at my age, and I imagine it was for you too when you were young. When I became a teenager, I didn't get anywhere near that amount of sleep.
I probably got 4 to 6 hours a night.
Yeah, and my kids aren't, we work on sleep, but my kids aren't getting that sleep. First of all, school starts way too, not only that, here's the interesting thing. They're designed biologically. We're designed biologically at that age to be sleeping later in the morning. Literally, that's what we're designed. So where school and everything is going, we've known this for decades now. It goes against what our normal biology should be. And so that's a big problem right there. I don't think we're going to change schools to opening up at 11 or 12 in the afternoon. That's largely because it fits in the parent's schedule.
Yep.
Those things are but it's an issue, and work with your children, make it a priority, make it a family priority, that sleep is important. And sleep hygiene is important. Kids, more than anything, their behavior is role modeling behavior. So another reason it is great to take on these 4 pillars of foundational things for your health and well-being is if you're emphasizing these things in your family and you're, again, paying attention to these things. The goal isn't to do it perfectly, but the goal is to pay attention more often than not, make the shifts and changes that are within your ability to do that makes sense to you. You will pass that on to your children. It's the biggest indicator to behavior with children is mimicking the behavior of their parents.
So you can instill good, healthy habits in them early by having good, healthy habits in yourself.
Absolutely. Okay. And you're instilling success for your child.
And that's such a great word, because this is what leads to success, I think, is you mentioned it last time we talked, when we talked about the nervous system, Dr. Steve. Each one of us is different. Like our thumbprint, my thumbprint is different than yours. And if you're listening right now, obviously your thumbprint is different than Dr. Steve's and mine. Our biochemical makeup has to be the same way, at least to certain degrees, that everybody's going to be a little bit different.
Yes.
So if I'm trying to change, so let's say I'm 45 years old. I've been working a job for 20 years, and I haven't been sleeping well for 20 years. What are some steps? I know you mentioned in theory, like how to change. What are those little things that I could do? Like, all right, the phone, we got that. I'm going to put my phone down an hour before I go to sleep. Try that out.
Right.
What else? Small steps make big differences if you keep making the small steps. Because I think there's so many challenges in our own brains to making even small steps because the routine kicks in.
Yeah. One that we haven't talked about that makes a big difference and will really empower you here is paying attention to your nervous system. So we talked about nervous system last time. Your nervous system, specifically your autonomic nervous system, which is your fight or flight nervous system. And there's your parasympathetic, which is your rest and relax. And both of these things are always operating at the same time. But just think about like a seesaw. Sometimes you're more in fight or flight. Okay, so our ancestors, if that lion just passed out, just literally jumped out of the bush for us, you want to be full throttle into fight or flight. Okay, and probably flight because even if you're Mike Tyson, you're probably not going to do very well. Yeah, you're not going to probably. I'm just telling you statistically, LA statistics, your odds aren't good there. And when you want to rest, you need to be way out of fight or flight, and much more, the seesaw should be way up on the end of parasympathetic nervous system. So there's a lot of strategies, mindful practices, meditation, breathing exercises. So these are simple things you can learn how to do. They're going to benefit you not just for sleep, they're going to benefit you throughout your conscious awakening days to be able to balance your nervous system whenever you need to. We don't make good decisions where you make good like life or death decisions when we're in a fight, heavy and sympathetic, but we don't make good rational decisions, and we tend to make very emotional decisions. So just important to be aware of that. So you can implement these simple strategies, these practices. Breathing exercises are practices, just like exercise is a practice. Meditation is a practice. So, those are good skills to start practicing and learning. They'll have tons of benefit. They're going to help you be able to relax yourself. A lot of people have this thing with sleep that they wake up. I have this very strongly where you wake up somewhere usually between 2 and 4 in the evening. And around 3 o'clock for most people, we get this cortisol. There's some things that just happen biochemically. And one of the things you get is cortisol dump. And then often it's a time where people will wake up. Okay, if you're able to go quickly back into the kind of rest and relax state, and a bunch of hormonal things are happening there, it's an important function that occurs. But if you're sensitive to that, and a lot of people are, it will wake you up. The people who very good at staying in sympathetic and the thinking mind doesn't turn on, that's my challenge at that time is I wake up and I just start thinking about stuff, right? So I've utilized these meditation techniques that I've developed these skills, and it's been years, and it was challenging for me to learn those things.
Sure.
But it's exercise for your brain. Ooh. And some people, have less challenges gaining physical condition. Some people have more. I mean, I have more challenges mentally.
Yeah.
Because really the ability to balance your thought process, and you learn these skills in meditation. I actually don't know any other way to learn these skills other than meditation. When you start getting that about meditation and actually experiencing that about meditation, it benefits your life, and sleep is one of those ways in so many ways. So those mindful practices are really very valuable in terms of sleep. There's some supplemental things you can take. Magnesium's a great thing to start with. First of all, most people are deficient in magnesium. There's thousands of functions that magnesium benefits. It's a very essential mineral for our body. And one of the benefits of magnesium is it helps your muscles relax. Your muscles relax is part of your body relaxing. So magnesium is a really great thing. Epsom salt baths, most people don't know, is that the Epsom salt is mostly magnesium. There's a lot of magnesium in Epsom salt baths. Oh. And one of the huge benefits of Epsom salt baths, particularly in the evening, is not just that it helps your muscles recover and restore, but you're getting tons of magnesium through your skin into your body. And so Epsom salt baths are a really great thing. There's some other supplemental things depending on where your sleep disruptions might be, that can help balance certain things out. Those are things that I recommend. Again, work with a professional if you're really getting serious about this stuff. And there's this low-hanging fruit. The other thing I will say that's very important, we talked about caffeine. I would say the other one that's really important to understand is alcohol and how it affects sleep. And we probably want to talk a little bit about cannabis and CBD as well too. THC and CBD. But let's talk about alcohol first, which is a lot of people utilize alcohol, in their opinion, as some type of sleep aid. It helps them calm down and they feel like that helps them fall to sleep. The whole nightcap before you go to sleep.
Sure. Which again is part of the culture, right? It's like embedded into what we think is right. But I think you're going to tell us.
Well, here's what you should know about that. Right? Alcohol is a sedative. That's the classification of drug that alcohol is. And sedatives can render you unconscious. They can help bring you to an unconscious state. However, that unconscious is not sleeping. And this is a very important thing for people to understand. And
interesting.
I rarely drink now, but I drank a lot when I was younger.
Sure.
And, you would drink, you'd pass out, and you might be out. You might think you're out for like 10 hours or whatever, 8 to 10 hours. There's a reason that you don't wake up feeling refreshed in those situations. You weren't actually sleeping. You weren't going into your sleep cycles when that occurs. Also, what happens when you're inebriated or just under the influence, I don't say inebriated, but you're under the influence of alcohol, is you actually wake up much more frequently while you sleep. You don't remember it, but it's in sleep studies, and they've done millions of these things, and there's plenty of research on this. You're waking up way more often. You're not going into your deep sleep states, your REM sleep states. So it has a real negative effect on quality of sleep. And again, you might think you're getting a lot of quantity of sleep, but most of that sleep, you're actually just passed out.
So you're doing yourself more harm long term because your body is not kind of shutting down with the way it needs to be able to repair itself.
So the more you can, as a tip, the more you can eliminate alcohol. I mean, that's just
okay.
And I'm not telling people don't ever. Again, these are your choices to make, but eliminate alcohol as much as if you want to improve your sleep. Alcohol is going to have a negative effect on your sleep, especially in the evening. And it's not you getting drunk. Even like one nightcap is going to have a negative effect.
So what does alcohol do, Dr. Steve? So is it the same as caffeine? Is it a receptor thing where the alcohol interacts with certain parts of your body?
Yeah, it is. I don't know the receptors as well as I do know with caffeine, but yeah, it's a sedative. So there's certain parts of the brain, of your conscious brain, that's affected. This is the same reason why if we're not passed out from alcohol, we don't make as good decisions. Our reaction to, again, like it's drinking and driving. It's not like you can force yourself. Some people think that, I'm going to drink a bunch of caffeine and then I'm going to get in my car.
Yeah.
Now you're just an awake drunk.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And you're not
cancel the booze effects out.
Yes, and the bad decisions or the bad decisions.
Yeah.
Is really the cream. So it's turning off those parts of the brain. Yeah, it also loosens you up and it makes us a little more social.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's benefits, and again, we should all be weighing our benefits to negatives when it comes to these things. So there's reasons that people want to utilize alcohol for the benefits that they feel they have, and they should be also aware of negative effects and then make decisions appropriately.
And there's also a culture built around that, right? There's a culture of hanging out with your friends. You go to the bar, you go to a restaurant, you do it.
You're in Vegas.
Absolutely. But no, right? The body can handle, your body can handle so much good stuff. And I think that's a testament, Dr. Steve, to what you do as a doctor is each of us has the ability to have our bodies kick butt, like kick viruses out, manage our own thoughts. But it's being aware of the external things that you do that interrupt that. So if you're getting drunk 5 nights a week, it's different than, you know what, I had a little too much once a month.
Yeah.
Your body
100%.
can handle that. You like have a day where you're like, oh my God, I'm groggy, but you get back into your routine, you're okay.
More often than not. That's the mindset I want for people with all these things. Hey, I'm making a commitment to do this more often than not. That way also when you don't do it, you just learn from that and, hey, was that worth it for me? I mean, one of the reasons I drink way less than I used to is once I became a parent. I mean, if I drank and then it was like the next day, I'm just like, I just want to lay on the couch. I mean, back in the day, I was like, okay, I guess I used to lay on the couch and just watch sports and hang out with the boys. That's not my life anymore.
Right.
And if that was still my life, that might be a decision that I'm like okay with. I mean, there is a reality. I'm huge, as you know, into longevity and keeping myself young and my body functioning young. There's a reality to how well you recover when you're in your 20s.
Oh my goodness!
From
yes.
a bender to how well I recover, in my being 52 now.
2 hours versus 3 days.
Yes, yeah. And I'm used to it. I mean, I remember when I first started practicing, I went out and had dinner, and I had a couple beers at dinner. I mean, the next day at work, I was just like, I just will not. It's just like, again, I paid attention. I was aware. It's like, that's just not worth it.
Yeah, because you got to best serve your clients by being your best self.
100%. I was just like, it's just not worth it for me. More often than that, even now on the weekends with my family, I'm like, it's just not worth. I don't want to lose my Saturday and my Sunday with that as family time with my kids. And I don't want to be even 80% of me on that days. I want to be 100% the person, who I can be, and that potential that you were talking about. That's what I want. And so, there's events that I'll have. Absolutely. And I'll be like, so maybe once a month I'm having a couple drinks with that.
How did you make that change, Dr. Steve? Do you remember?
It wasn't one moment. Actually, I love that question too. This has just been a progression for me. This has been a progression really since I started practicing of just making small incremental changes, which is another thing I so emphasize to people is make slow, easy changes over time. That's the recipe for success. So often we're trying to make so many vast changes at once, and it's too much. We're habitual creatures. And yes, some people do have the willpower of a Navy SEAL and just like, I'm just going to do this. And more often when people do those types of decisions, there's usually and again, there's research on this, there's usually some type of big life event that happened to them. Hey, you know what? My brother just died of a heart attack at 42. Like, oh my God. Fear. There is like an emotional reason for them to make a shift. A lot of times it happens when I did make a lot of shifts when my children were first born. That's a huge emotional event. It's a different phase of my life. I have different responsibilities as a father than I did as a single human being. Like much different responsibilities and I don't miss any of those days. I don't regret any of those days. I had so much fun when I was young. Sure, but that's just like I couldn't live that lifestyle now. It doesn't even make sense. It's not congruent with the person I am today. If I was that same person in my 20s, most of those there's probably not too much I would actually change about the decisions I was making back then. Well, that's not probably true. There's probably a lot. Sure. And with cell phones, I'm certainly making different video everywhere.
Thank God I didn't grow up in the
cell phone. Thank God we didn't grow up with like,
yep.
Hey, Dr. Steve, remember this?
Yep. No, oh, I guess I do now. Yeah. So do we all have patterns, right? In whether this is a thought pattern, a body pattern, is a pattern a biochemical reaction that our body's gotten used to? Because going back to those little incremental changes. So again, my idea of depression, it was like little tiny things that I would do. Right. And those little tiny things would eventually lead to a breakthrough. Yeah. And then the breakthrough led to another little change. Then it's eventually another breakthrough. Is that my body changing, or is that my mind and my will changing my body?
Yeah, it's
either or neither.
I would say it's both. I mean, these things kind of ebb and flow. This is why making small habit changes, that's where you get lasting results. Because over time, those small habitual changes, especially the ones that we're talking about here, is changing the biochemistry. Then the biochemistry changes, and your biochemistry is dictating to you the decisions you're going to make. Sure. So they do play into each other. We can get we'll get lightly philosophical with that too, because most of what we do is very just habitual with that too. And what we know about willpower, almost everybody has very, very little willpower. Willpower, when you really get into the philosophy, but even the biochemistry of what's going on with what willpower is, people far over exaggerate what we think we're capable of in terms of just willpower. So, again, there's a lot of emotional connection to these things. There are biochemical, with the biochemistry thing that I was saying with the small habits. I mean, your biochemistry can, in some of these things, it has to become a pattern over time. So the thought that you can just change it like on a whim which again, I know, we've been culturally taught this like quick fix or whatever.
Yeah.
Even some drugs and a lot of drugs and medication in this world. Yeah. They're making big biochemical changes, but they're not changing in a way that's naturally congruent to the body, what should be going on. Plus then you become dependent on those drugs. Often your body stops naturally producing what's designed to produce. It's a negative feedback loop because your body thinks, I don't need to produce this. Like we're getting this. And now actually the body says, we need this more. It's great model for the drug companies because guess what? You take these things and you need it for life.
Yes.
And you even need it more so for life a lot of times because now your body's eventually is just like, I don't ever have to produce that chemical. Or I'm not driven to go out and move my body, which would naturally produce that chemical because I'm getting it through some foreign way through this drug or medication.
So let's continue about the foreign ways because that's so fascinating. I definitely, all right, in the next coming weeks, we're definitely going to have a conversation about just the impacts of the pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
But let's go to the natural pharmaceutical, at least a lot of people. So we have booze. We've covered that. Mm-hmm. It impacts you even if you have one. What about marijuana, THC? It's legal where we live in Arizona for recreational use. It's legal in many states. It's part of life.
Yes. And there's a reality of people using these things. So I will say largely there's a lot of research coming out on the use of, we'll start with THC and we'll talk about CBD. And there is a lot more that needs to be done. And so we have early information and some of it's conflicting. So I would say the verdict's out in large part when it comes to that. So a lot of the research that's out now would tell you that THC has negative effects on sleep, and also has positive effects on sleep. And so let's talk. We'll talk about.
Study says this. Study says the opposite.
Yeah. So a lot of the research shows with, and I'll tell you like to me like the weakness of and why there's more research needed. Maybe how this. I wouldn't say these are weak studies, but these studies to me cause me to ask other questions. So I'm going to talk about those questions that I think will help then us better answer some of these questions. But a lot of the studies show that THC affects also those sleep cycles. And so that's just an important thing to know with that. Mm-hmm. Not near as huge of an effect as you're seeing with alcohol or caffeine staying in your body. Certainly it helps a lot of THC and CBD is very good at helping the nervous system relax. So there's a lot of benefit if you're hard getting out of that fight or flight, like, hey, I just have I know my sympathetic nervous system is activated and it's hard for me to relax. I haven't learned mindful practice. I haven't learned some of these like
ways
healthy
to do it without.
Yes, mm-hmm. without. And that's why I would even encourage you, if you find this benefit from THC that helps you get to that state more, then that's a good sign for you to also learn some of these other things. And maybe you're using less THC over time because of it, because you don't feel so much you need it for that. And you're empowering yourself doing that.
Totally.
So I think where people see the most benefit, where the science would lay out right now, is that benefit of it helps their nervous system relax. So it helps them fall asleep and get into and so a lot of the people, it helps them get into their deep sleep cycle faster.
And I can attest, Dr. Steve, that I have experimented with THC and CBD to try to see if it would help me sleep, and I have found mostly positive results. Not 100% of the time, but more often than not, it helps me relax, which I have hard time doing.
Yeah. I will say I talk to so many people, and I'm one of these people too. I feel like it helps me, certainly. And so many people, I hear that feedback. I think what happens in part two is the people who have the positive, and especially these are people that a lot of them are my clients, because they're more tuned into their body. I think the people who stick with it are people that notice like, hey, it has a net plus benefit for me because I just feel better.
Yeah.
I wake up and I feel like I slept better because
there's no hangover and like there is with booze.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, that's the most important metric in terms of you're tuned into your body is how you feel. Pay attention to that. And I say that metric with like, after you eat, pay attention to how you feel 10 minutes after you eat, an hour later. All these things, the more you can tune into that, you get to know your body rather than some doctor or some test telling you. whether it's having benefit or not, quote unquote, not having benefit for you. So that's a big one. The other question I would say that I think is important with THC is there's all kinds of different strands of THC that people use. There's indica, there's sativa. Indica is the more rest and relax.
Yeah.
Go to sleep.
Into the couch is how I was.
Yes.
That's
and sativas for most people. Again, this varies actually widely biologically to people. Tends to be more of the like, hey, I'm awake, I'm getting shit done. That kind of used for that for people. Helps me so many like attorneys who like use that stuff because it like helps them like focus. It's a nootropic for them. It helps their brain just really focus in, and probably also offsets some of the high strung these people tend to be with that too. Where the indica helps. So a lot of there's just even different strands. There's hybrids now. So I think what they will find that as they get more and more into the weeds, they'll probably find strands that will be more beneficial. There are certain strands that have more of a negative effect. This information is not out there right now. But again, it will interact with you as an individual, right, Dr. And then Steve? You have to look at yourself because, and this is the same with drugs. I mean, it is a drug. It comes from nature. Most drugs come from nature. They're usually, if it's a pharmaceutical drug, they're isolating it down and then they're patenting it, but it's, some compound they found in nature almost always. And so I think as more information comes out, what I'm hopeful for, and the science will show what it is that there are certain strands that show more negative benefit, and there's certain strands that show net positive benefits. Mm-hmm. And then always, when you're taking these things, you have to see how you biologically as an individual interact with those things. So THC versus CBD. So THC is the one that gets you high. Because it has the psychoactive ingredient in it. THC is psychotropic. CBD takes the psychotropic out. Yes. To just help you relax. So what is the difference between the two? Yeah. And if someone was like, I'm not really sure about THC, would you recommend giving CBD a try? Absolutely. I mean, the quick answer is yes. So a couple things about it. They both come from the cannabis family. The cannabis family is marijuana. The cannabis family is hemp. Hemp in its natural form, all these things I'm going to say in their natural form because they've all been like hybrid now. So hemp in its natural form is crossbreeding. Yes. Hemp in its natural form is very high in CBD and has almost no THC in it at all. And you'd have to take so much hemp to get any kind of takes a gallon of hemp. Don't quote me on that. It's wrong, but it takes. I mean, nobody can pretty much get enough of. Has to worry that they're getting THC from a natural source of hemp with that. It's going to have any kind of effect on that. Marijuana is more high in is the one that has THC in it and also will have CBD in it to a lower amount typically with that. Because there are some with both, right? There's 10 milligrams of CBD, 10 milligrams of THC combined. Yeah. And that does different things. And in general, I just tell you that you should try to get your CBD from a hemp source. It's weird because hemp used to be, just like marijuana was illegal in the U.S., hemp was banned. It was all kind of, it's weird political stuff. Yes. It's history. It's weird political, look, there's somewhere out there's a really good Joe Rogan clip where he's interviewing the whole story. It's a very fascinating story. It's like a 20-minute story of how politically this happened in the 20s that they some lobby for some other group. It had to do with the competition. It had to do with the cotton industry. Yeah. Hemp is such an effective, not just on the side of what it does for your health and well-being. It has more to do with the competition that it created because hemp's an amazing miracle plant that can be used for all kinds of things. That aside, it's better to get your CBD from hemp. And because hemp was banned in the U.S., you couldn't grow hemp in the U.S., when marijuana started becoming legal, they were hybriding marijuana to have more CBD in it and less THC because literally they couldn't grow hemp here in America. As crazy as that story sounds too. So a lot of CBD comes from marijuana source, and it's first of all it just works. It's more effective. All the different chemicals in hemp that work with CBD and make it's called the entourage effect, so it makes it more effective in your body. So getting a natural source from hemp is better with CBD. Enough about that and the side part that we went into there. But CBD is very, very, very effective at relaxing your nervous system and actually equalizing your nervous system is even a better way to think about it. So actually CBD, you can wake up in the morning if you're like an anxiety-ridden person, like CBD for many people in that state, it helps them calm down and keeps the anxiety at bay.
And it's natural.
And you can take that. It's not going to make you drowsy. It's not, there's sleep benefits to it because it helps relax your body. So if your body needs sleep, it's going to help relax your body. That's going to just always bring you closer to falling asleep if you need sleep. But if you don't need sleep and you're taking it, it's just helping neutralize your nervous system.
So the point is there are benefits. If you want to experiment, there are safe ways to do it. Like do it at home. Don't go anywhere. It's just like drinking, right?
Yes.
You know what your limit is. THC is completely different because it's like being what the equivalent, I would say, is a heavy buzz, depending on how much you take. Obviously, you can go more or not. So it's not advisable to do in public.
THC will alter you.
Yes.
Will alter your perception.
That is very true.
Yes. And CBD will not do that to you. Two more things with sleep and CBD. The studies on CBD show that it doesn't have a negative effect. They appear to show that it doesn't have a negative effect on your deep sleep and your REM sleep as well, which THC, there's mixed reviews. But
you'll be able to tell for yourself if that's something you want to do.
Yeah, and that's something you do. And you can also buy wearables and look at these things.
Ooh, I'm glad
the other
you
thing I
mentioned
want to say, because this is a really important hack for the listeners. I mentioned earlier how a lot of us will wake up sometime between 2 and 4 a.m. and then have a difficulty going back to sleep. That is a very effective time. If you just keep that CBD in a liquid form next to your bed, take the dropper out, put it underneath your tongue when you wake up, because that's going to quickly help your body go back into that rest or relaxed state. So that is a great hack. I use that for myself. Nice. It doesn't work 100% all the time, but it's more often than not, I'm gaining benefit from it.
Yeah, and there's no real downside to it.
No.
Okay, so that's fantastic. So you mentioned wearables, tech to track. So technology typically interrupts your normal sleep pattern. So if you're looking at your phone as you're going to bed, you have too much light. You mentioned that earlier, Dr. Steve. So what is acceptable? So I have an Oura Ring to track my sleep. I have an Apple Watch, but I don't wear the Apple Watch to sleep.
Yeah.
What do you recommend so that we can keep track of quality of sleep, how long we've been sleeping, and what we may need to do to improve our sleep habits?
Yeah, I would choose the Oura over the Apple Watch for certain. Oura is a really great one. It's a ring. It's really great for sleep. It does heart rate variability, which is a metric that they can more accurately track your sleep over time with that. I don't know if the Apple Watch does. It may, because Apple's pretty advanced with their technology. I mean, you're just going to be more comfortable wearing an Oura Ring and having the Apple Watch on. There's also you're also wearing a computer that's doing a bunch of different things. And there's, I would say, again, the research not so out, but I mean, the more you can eliminate those types of interference frequencies in your body, I mean, certainly they're not doing anything good for your body. And there's a lot of people and there's a lot of reasons to believe that those things are having a negative effect on you as well.
Well, it's an unnatural, right? It's your body has to process what hits, because we talked about this again. I would encourage you, if you haven't listened to Dr. Steve and the nervous system, go back to the Equal Matters podcast. You'll find it, because it's so much useful information just about what your body can process is unbelievable. I read a stat, it was like 4 billion bits a second.
Yeah, it is something insane like that. And I mean, we're beautiful, incredible.
We are. It's so much fun.
It's like the more you learn about the body, it's so awesome what we are capable of, what we don't even realize we're capable of. The amount of, we talk about how great it is that we can thrive and feel great and how our body can express that. It's amazing how much abuse our body can take and how much abuse we actually do to our body with that.
And that's what I love. No matter where you're at right now, as you're listening to Dr. Steve, you can improve. Doesn't matter if you're 62, 22, 82. There's always steps that you can take. Now, maybe if you're 82, it's a little bit harder, but you still can do certain things. And I think that's what's so freeing about understanding more about your health. So I do have a question for you about tuning into your body, Dr. Steve, because we mentioned that in the nervous system conversation. We mentioned that today in terms of sleep. What is some easy steps that I could take to really kind of understand what my body is doing, going through, and how it feels?
Yeah, great. So one way, and we talked about wearables. I mean, that is especially if you're an analytical person and you like get into that stuff. That's a great way, especially with
sheets,
specifically with sleep. Well, I want to tell you like that there's a downside to that too, which I'm going to talk about in a second here. But it's cool. It's fun. You're empowering yourself. I mean, we don't know large part what goes on during our sleep. That's giving us a little window into what's happening. It's cool to be looking at like, oh, like my deep sleep was this, my REM sleep, because they have ways they estimate those things. Couple things I would tell you that can be downsides with that. One is the technology is nowhere near what you would get and the accuracy you would get going into a sleep lab and the technology they use there. I mean, these aren't catching up though. They're putting probes all over your brain and measuring brain waves and all things.
But is it hard to sleep in that scenario?
I always have wondered about that too. Mm-hmm. I've always asked that question. I don't have an answer for you. It seems for me, I'm like, doesn't that like totally change everything? I agree. So I tell people who are going to use wearables, this is the way I think about it. It's like you have a broken scale. So it's not going to be very accurate, but what it is accurate to itself. So if you're using a wearable and you're starting to make shifts and changes, you will see positive outcomes to your estimated deep sleep, your positive outcomes to your estimated REM. So they're off by like 20 to 30%, but they're off. You can see trends. I'm moving this way. I'm moving that way. So that's where one of the values. Now, another downside that can happen with wearables, and I've had this happen to me, is you get so wrapped up in the data, and the data itself starts stressing you out and driving you. For sure. I'm always, for me, it's always like my perfectionist mentality. Listen, I talk and preach this stuff, and I'm like a firm believer, like I practice what I preach. Yep. I mean, sleep for me is my biggest challenge of those pillars. That's my challenge. So for me, it is the answer to your very first question. It's the most important thing for me, because it's where I will struggle, and it's, everything else I feel I'm way in control of. Not so much my sleep compared to everything else, the other pillars with that too. And I've gotten to the point where I'm so looking into my data and whatever. I'm like, the data itself is stressing me out. I'm thinking about the data.
Data's keeping me up at night.
So I actually, right now, I am doing a detox from my wearables. And because I want to more tune into my body, which I do as well. But I'm like, I'm just going to pay attention to, so I'm not thinking about the data as much as I was. And now, and I'll go back to wearables. I like them and whatever, but I'm like, I need to step away from that for a minute, as a habit for myself. And that's been effective for me. And I've seen a number of people fall into that pattern of like, their wearables doing the opposite of what's supposed to be doing, of helping them.
Which is a challenge, right? But that gets down to self-awareness, self-knowledge. And I found that if I sit and I just kind of close my eyes and I just kind of like work my awareness through my body and see, what feels okay, what doesn't, what's that about? Okay, I'm going to pay attention to that, see if that comes back later. Yes. Is that me fooling myself, or is that something that truly can be effective?
You being present with your body. And that is a mindful practice, what you're doing. That mindfulness is the practice that we can all do to help with this stuff. And mindfulness is self-awareness. Mindfulness is being in your moment. Mindfulness is, we'll talk about this in depth. Mindfulness is even just paying attention to your thoughts. A lot of
rather
people
than
like
reacting to them all the time.
And you can just make a game out of, it's interesting how that thought just popped in my head, and now this thought, and that's taking me there. And just being, so many of us are controlled by our thoughts rather than realizing that we have the power to be present and calm that thought down. Because if you really think about who thinks the thought, I mean, where does it come from?
Right.
Are you in control of?
Are you an antenna? Did it come? Is it an emotion? Is it translated in your brain? A lot of those things we still don't know.
But just paying attention to that is a mindful practice. It grounds you, and it calms your nervous system, and it is a great practice what you do. Tuning into your body is one of the biggest things of just like, okay, like, oh, I'm just going to pay attention to my big toe. Now I'm going to go pay attention to the back of my knee. Like all these things are there at the same time. So when you're just tuning in and being present with it, that's going to help.
And that will help you sleep. And again, we're talking to Dr. Steve Hruby, Kaizen Progressive Health, KaizenProgressiveHealth.com, based in Scottsdale. Sleep, nutrition, gut health, nervous system, movement are 4 pillars of health. We've got our nervous system. We've got our sleep. So which one should we talk about next? Should we talk nutrition? Should we talk movement?
Let's talk nutrition, gut health.
Okay, so that'll be coming real soon with Dr. Steve Hruby. But before you go, Dr. Steve, I'm just going to spring this on you. You have a community called Superhuman.
Correct.
Tell me a little bit about that and tell me how I can find out more and sign up for what you guys do.
Yeah. So as I've mentioned today, lifestyle choices are the foundation to all good health in the present that you're going to have. They are the foundation to all your health in the future. And I'm very passionate about health and longevity. And those are the things that I am always teaching people about and have been teaching people about in my office. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of what we're talking about today. And it's time consuming to teach people that, but it's also so rewarding for the person and for me as a practitioner. It's the, you can fish for somebody, you can teach them how to fish.
Absolutely.
Analogy I use. And I want to teach people how to fish. And the community it's an online platform. Once a week, we have a class where we're talking about, we might be talking about sleep. We're usually getting a little bit more in the weeds. So we're probably talking about a specific aspect of one of the pillars of sleep with that too. We'll go over, people understand the importance of it, how it works in the body. And then we go over simple lifestyle hacks that you can do. Maybe you're already doing, maybe you can do more of this, like little places where people can make shifts and changes.
Incremental differences.
And the invitation to the community is like, more often than not, pick one of these things and start implementing that or implementing it more in your life. And there's a community there to support you. It's an online platform that we have. The following week, then what we have is like a question and answer. But it's also a check-in with people in the community and
accountability,
where where they can talk about, hey, I'm having success here, I'm having challenges here. There's 3 practitioners, myself, Dr. Gary Rosas, who's a medical doctor. He's my medical director. He's an ER doctor. So he's that world.
Yeah.
But very holistic and fits into our
Mm-hmm.
yes. But he can speak from that authority. Joel, who's physician's assistant in my office, really cool guy, leads like meditation groups. Like, so he's in the medical world, but also very holistic in his approach.
He's got a foot in both.
Yeah.
Joel.
So we're the facilitators of these groups. So you're getting this 1 hour a week. There's an online platform where then you can interact with the community and you can ask questions and things. So it's we started this about 2 months ago, and it has exceeded all my expectations. Because again, I know this is where people make those foundational, really life shifts. And so the community is there to teach, educate, help you take action, get results. And we're super excited. You can look at the website, KaizenProgressiveHealth.com. You can contact me. We've been launching this with our beta group. So we are literally going to, by the time this is being aired, you'll be able to enjoy all the benefits of the Superhuman community. It's fun for me too. It's a new way for me to teach and educate and empower. So there's been a little bit of a learning curve. Actually, there's been much less than I thought of a learning curve of teaching people. And some of it was just like, okay, we're going to be on this online platform. Like, technically, how do we make that work? And and things like that. And we haven't had too many, hiccups there. So I feel ready to bring this to the public and start really helping a lot of people in a way. And plus we can do that and do it in a very affordable way for everybody. We want to get this message and these habits out to the masses. We want people to have success. We know what it takes to have success. And part of the community is community support. We're going to also talk, one of these things is just how important community and human connection is. And a huge part of getting results, and one of the reasons we're having such benefits with this community, is because of the community itself and the support that people can find there.
So if you're looking for a community that helps you with these 4 pillars of health with Dr. Steve Hruby: sleep, nutrition, nervous system, movement, we're going to give you kind of some guidelines here on Equal Matters, but jump into that superhuman community. Find it at kaizenprogressivehealth.com. Dr. Steve, thanks for dropping so much knowledge on us.
Thank you.
I'm ready to take my next steps to help myself sleep a little bit better, and we'll keep going.
And can we share your that you've recently become part of the superhuman community?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. All right, awesome.
Again, I'm all about that longevity. I got a lot to do.
One more thing with superhuman, it's superhuman spelled HUMN. So we took the A out.
Take the A out.
So if you're looking for us, that's where you're going to find it.
So there you go. Dr. Steve,
right.
We'll chat real soon. Thanks again so much.
Yeah, so much fun. Love this, Rob. Thank you.
One thing I learned during the pandemic, your health is up to you. Sure, Dr. Steve can help you, but your health is based on your choices. A choice that I recently made is to make sure that I get more sleep, thanks to currently hosting an afternoon show instead of a morning show. Since doing so, I've got more energy, and I'm generally happier. We also talked to Dr. Steve about the role your nervous system plays in your overall health as well. That was back on episode 2. Go back and catch it, because this is knowledge that you can use and implement in your own life to improve the quality of your life. My name is Rob Hunter. I've been a radio broadcaster for over 25 years. I created a communication course called Master Your Message, where I teach you how to use broadcasting skills and techniques to improve your performance at work. These are designed to help you improve your quality of life at work and at home. Improve your performance, which will create your opportunities. So to get started, go to paintedporchstrategies.com/communication. It's super simple to get going. It's only $197. If you want to accelerate your performance, let's chat about coaching. I'm your coach as you implement these broadcast techniques, which will improve your performance even faster. Get started there by clicking on the one-on-one coaching link at paintedporchstrategies.com/Rob. There you can set up a call with me, jump on for free, and let's find out if coaching is going to work for you. paintedporchstrategies.com/Rob, or my email address, rob@equalmatters.com. rob@equalmatters.com. If you like this episode, I would love it. I would appreciate it if you shared it. We're trying to grow this thing. We got big plans with it. We got big visions, because media just isn't serving us right now. Equal Matters will attempt to do just that. I'd also love it if you left a rating and a review, because that does help the algorithm or whatever find out about this podcast, which again is designed to bring us a little bit closer together and broaden our perspectives a little bit. Thanks for being here. My name is Rob Hunter. Good night.